RC. We're back with a brand new airplane from a brand new company I have no experience with, so I'm excited to share with you guys my first time trying out an Arrows RC airplane, and what better one to do it with than the 1400 millimeter Sky Cruiser. It's a badass name. Obviously, this is a Cessna. I'm excited. I don't have anything like that. As you guys may know, I'm more of a jet guy. However, you know, my dirty little secret is float planes. And with float planes, I've been flying them around and I have been relaxing and just enjoying life blissfully outside the craziness of jets. However, you can only do that at the lake. I was at my local Fun Fly and had a blast of a time, but I didn't have anything that I could just kind of chill and have a fun, smooth flight with that I felt comfortable with. I'm still fairly new to this hobby, so I thought a Cessna style airplane like the 1400 millimeter Sky Cruiser would be perfect. If you guys are watching this video, you're probably interested in getting this. Maybe you already ordered it. If you haven't, check the links down below. You can use those to pick this up. But let's get into the unboxing and assembly of this brand new airplane. All right, let's dive into it. Let's see what's in this box. I feel like you can always judge how rough the install will be by how many pieces there are. So we got the instructional manual out, we get the wings out. I'm starting to notice that the control horns are not on the wings, so we'll have to put those on. Got the elevator, the rudder, looks like that glues in. Lots of plastic to get on out of here. And then taking the good old fuse out is just like a Christmas morning. Running down the stairs, opening your first present. I love taking the fuselage out. This one looks great, a lot of details on it. We'll get to that later. We got the propeller, and then we got baggies of screws and control horns and stuff like that. And of course, the spar. Stoked to see the landing gear looks really good. The tires are a little bit noisy. I can get by that, but they are a little
really
hard.
Cool, though.
We got three pieces here. The front, though, looks like it has a shock on it, which is super nice for them harder landings. I do those every now and again. Wing support so we don't fold our wings in half when we try a loop. More baggies that could pass for contraband, but it's more screws. Make sure your box is empty always. First impressions, this is a beautiful aircraft. I love the color scheme on it. The blue and yellow goes hard. It looks sick, very like scale looking. Cockpit, got the pilot in here with an instrument cluster, super dope. See how bad it is to assemble. Looks like some gluing. All right, so first thing what we have to do is get this landing gear in here. There's a little screw that's already in here. I spent 5 minutes looking for it in the bag, and then I realized that the screw's already in here, so don't go searching for it. And then my normal screwdriver that I use doesn't work. It's too thick. So make sure you have a really long screwdriver with a small tip, or just a really tiny one in general that you can get in here. And then you're gonna need to back out that screw, so that way you can put the post down from the front landing gear, and then we're gonna have to tighten it down. It is a little tricky. So you'll see the hole on this landing gear. We want to line that up in here. And I also had to kind of line up where that screw is. It moves around and shifts in there. There we go, we're in. And now we just gotta hope that screw is lined up and tighten her down. So let's give it a go. There's really no way to see if it is lined up or it isn't. I feel like we're screwing for a long time though. Maybe it's getting tighter. Oh, okay. We got her. Very nice. Next up, let's get our rear landing gear in. This should be pretty simple. We got some screws, and then the rear landing gear just slides into position. You do have to finagle it a little bit once it's in to make sure your holes are lined up. You can use a screwdriver to put it in the hole to kind of get them together, but once you do that, get the screws in there, and then you're just gonna screw them down. As you can see, I had just a little bit of trouble lining them up, nothing serious. Shimmy it around, you'll get her going right there, and then make sure to not do it too tight. It's styrofoam you're screwing into. This part was pretty new to me. I haven't had to really do it, but you're gonna notice these plastic pads that are control horn mounts to, and we're gonna have some screws that go through. As you can see on the table, we have a few different lengths of screws, and I don't know what kind of idiot would mess up which one to use, but... So I used the wrong size screw. You're supposed to use a long one in the front and then a short one in the rear. We put the short, I just used both short ones because I assumed that's what it was supposed to do, but that was wrong. There's one screw that's slightly longer and one screw that's slightly shorter. It's hard to tell on camera, but long one in the front because that part of the flap is a little bit thicker. Also, a little side note, there are nubs on the plate. Make sure those are facing down. All right, we got our parts on our wing mounted up. I did think it was a little strange, and I'm not sure if I did something wrong or this is just the way it is, but that the screws come all the way through and actually poke out. So I'm gonna see if something happens later in the instructions or if I use the wrong parts. I think it's the right one, but if this is just how it is, I either have to back them out a little bit, but when I did that, it seemed loose, or I'm just gonna like take something and just clip them off because they're pokey. Ow! So now we gotta get to some gluing. All right, so next up we want these little guys. These are gonna go, they're gonna be for our wing supports. They only go in one way, which is nice, makes it simple, and we're gonna have to glue these in. So I have two different types of glue that I've been using on my airplanes. I'll have them linked down in the description below if you want them. This first one is a thin, it's almost like a super glue, but it's a super glue that's safe for foam. So I use this. It seems to work pretty good with plastics and stuff, but it hasn't seemed as strong as foam tack. Foam tack has been a lifesaver for me. It's repaired a lot of my planes, so I'm trying to decide which one I want to go with. Like that one just seems better for plastic on plastic. Since this is going on foam, I think I'm going to use a little bit of this. Then with this foam tack, you want to push it together and then pull it apart so it gets stringy. And then you just want to push it on there and hold real good. I always manage to put a little more than what I actually need to, so then I have some runoff, which is kind of annoying. I usually just try to smear it around with my finger. Don't smear it around too much, otherwise it gets real ugly on the outside. But what I found that does too is you can kind of seal it on. But if you have a ton of it, it ends up looking really yucky. So be careful with it. Works, dries pretty good, pretty quick. Next up, we're gonna do the same thing, but just on the wing of the airplane. So you're gonna see, got these little plastic pieces. They go in the same way. They have the things too to make sure that you put them on the correct orientation. Want them pointing inward, so then our strut brace will go right across. And then afterwards we glue on our antennas. I honestly, with these, they look really cool. I love it. Very scale, looks nice. However, I do wish they just kind of like clipped in or something, because I can see myself absolutely 100% breaking these off. But we'll glue them in, we'll put them in. It has a little spike to hold it in, and we'll just be extra careful with it. Stringy. Stuff is stringy. It's messy, but it works good, I promise. And then for these antennas going in the wing, you do need to stab the styrofoam, so be careful when you're putting it in, but then you put it in, folds in place, and we'll just add a little bit of glue to this as well. So freaking stringy. The only downside. Same thing, pull it apart, get it stringy. Sweet. All right, next up is hooking up the wings, and there's a tricky part here. So I was looking, just trying to organize the wires a little bit before we got into it, figuring out what goes where and where we'll plug our aileron wires in. I accidentally pulled the splitter out of what's called Vector, which is the flight control system. It gives you the gyro and whatnot, which is cool. I didn't know that was in here, but I didn't mean to unplug it, and now there's like no good way to plug it back in, and that Vector system is kind of like already adhered to the plane and I'm trying to pull it out and I can't. So don't make the same mistake I did by pulling one of these out, because now I don't know how I'm gonna get it back in there. I'm gonna have to try and figure out how to pry it off and probably re-adhere it back to the plane. Movie magic's gonna help me out here, but I did in fact rip the vector out so I could plug it back in. It was a pain. Try to keep all the wires attached to that so you don't have to do that. My only real tip here is try to keep the wires as organized as possible. I did what I could, but it is just a spaghetti meatball mess in there and there's limited space. This really is one of the trickiest parts of the install. Take your time, you're gonna have to. Whew, that was kind of rough, but we got it sorted out. I put new adhesive on this and put her down, kind of organized the wires here, so we should be able to get our wings on and start playing around with that. But I just want to show you guys that in these unboxings. I know it makes these videos a little longer, but I don't want you to make those mistakes too, because then that adds a ton of unnecessary time to your build. So be very careful when you're pulling these wires. Don't pull them, just touch them, because if it comes out, it just adds a huge mess. So now we're gonna see if we can get the wings on and then feed those wires down and plug them in here. So we have a flap, gear, and then aileron. I'm just gonna try to untangle these a little bit, and it is going to be a little tricky to get these to go all where we need to go. There's a little tunnel here that's made out of like a cardboard box. Hopefully this works to get them all down. This wire is kind of short. Just using my screwdriver to kind of push these wires down a little bit, help them out, encourage them to go down the tube. Go to your home. Don't you want to go to your home? Yeah, it's gonna be a handful when we gotta shove the other set of 3 wires from the other side down. Also, I waited to do my connecting rods to the servos until we can plug it in, so that way I know the servos are all at 0. So then we also gotta put our tube into the wing. Man, this is tricky to get all this through here. This is tough. What a mess. I got wire spaghetti in here. Oop, I already ripped one of my antennas out. All right, we're gonna try to get the screws for the wings. Too long, boys. These will not be quick disconnect wings. That's one thing to keep in mind too, because it's a pretty large plane. I don't see taking these wings on and off too easily. There's no way, especially with how short the wires are. All right, let's flip her over and see if we can find our wires. Whew, this is a mess of wires. My sausage fingers are too freaking big. Okay, our ailerons are in. We got to figure out what to do with all this other stuff and how the hell we're gonna plug in the flaps. All right, I think I'm making a little progress, but boy, this is a doozy. I'll try to explain it the best that I can, and I think I'm doing it right, but I'm not even for sure right now. So there's a little split connector that comes off for the flaps, and then I just connected both flaps to that, and then I ran it all the way back through. It doesn't plug into the vector. I think you just bypass it, go through, and you'll plug it directly into your receiver. So we have that all squared away. You can see a little bit. Still have to get my receiver on there. I'll clean up this wiring in here, but I have everything that's gonna plug into the receiver ready to go. I just zip tied it for now, and we'll keep moving forward with the rest of the build. Whew. Now that that's over, it's nice to work on something a little simpler. We have the wing supports going in, they slide into place, and then you're gonna have a screw and a nut. Now don't worry, you're not gonna have to get some little tiny elf-sized wrench in there. The nut actually kind of slides right into place and then locks into place, so that way you can tighten the screw. Again, remember, you're dealing with little plastic pieces here. You don't gotta go ape shit on it, just get it nice and snug. Coming back to our elevator, we have to do the same thing we did before and get our control horns mounted up. Same deal, long screw up front, short screw in the back. Now we're doing the rudder. We're gonna use the short screw boys on this one. So working on the rudder, we'll get all these screws mounted up, and then we got to do some more gluing. Now, I really do like when the vertical stabilizer just screws in, but we'll roll with the punches and glue this puppy on. Make sure it's nice and straight, get it the best you can, and then you're gonna have to glue more to the entire fuselage. So make sure you get that glue kind of spread around, and the trickiest part is making sure you get that glue around the wire, not on the wire, and you feed the wire properly so that way it doesn't get pinched at all. This is why you can see me taking a bit of time here, going back and forth, and I actually realized too I needed more glue. I did it just at the base, but then I end up pulling it up and then doing some more glue at the front of it. Because trust me, the last thing you want is that thing flying off while you're in midair. Finally, after powering it up with the receiver attached, making sure our servos are zeroed out, we're going to connect our servos to our control surfaces. This is pretty simple, but you do want to make sure you get it right to save you in the long run. Make sure these turn out perfectly straight, so that way if you have any trimming that you need to do, it's light and not too serious. So you're going to do these for the elevators, the rudder, and your ailerons. They went pretty simple. It didn't take a lot of adjustment, but I did make sure to do it right because you want to make sure they're nice and level. These ailerons are huge. And then finally, after you get the ailerons dialed in, you're going to be messing with your flaps. These ones were pretty short, so I had quite a bit of adjustment on these. I had to screw and screw and screw. I mean, it's nothing insane. It was pretty easy, but just so you know, you don't feel like you're doing it wrong if you're just screwing it way in. Just get it nice and level. More glue. Ah, yes, more glue, but this one isn't too bad. Just use a little bit. You don't need a lot. It's just a little scale feature on the vertical stabilizer. Get those in and then move over to your prop so it finally looks like a proper airplane. You're going to put this plate in with the rough side facing out, and then after you get that on there and kind of locked into place, put your propeller on and get that on there nice and snug, and then you're going to screw on the bit that you screwed off that holds the propeller onto it, and then I put a little screwdriver through it and tightened it down. You don't want that to get loose at all. You want to make sure this is pretty snug on there as well. After you get her all snugged up, bud, you get to do the cherry on top. You know what I'm referring to, the nose cone. Nice, chrome, and flashy. That should click right onto place. If it doesn't line up with your propeller, just redo it, and then she'll be looking good. Once again, I'm going to use a little bit of movie magic here, because you're going to have to go in and get your palms full of marinara sauce because you're digging into the spaghetti. All right, you're going to have to clean this mess up and get this organized the best you can. All right, I didn't go too crazy with it. I did try to spend some time because I really like when that bay is nice and clear for my battery. Your ESC cables are going to be in the way. I just kind of push them back when I put the battery in. I left them the way that they were. And then in the back, you can see I tucked in and I was able to 3M my receiver on the side there and just kind of tuck it in. And then I just pushed the wires forward into the slot. All right, guys, we got our receiver in, battery in, everything's mounted up to the best of my abilities. We got flaps. Woo! The flaps are cool. It was really sweet too. I love that the vector stabilization comes in here, because then I was able to get a cheaper receiver and still maintain that. So we have that wired up to our, I guess not wired up, but to our B switch. So if I flip that, boom, it's auto leveling. And then I can put it all the way up. Then we just have gyro in the middle, nothing. Super cool, works super easy. It was so easy to set up. I love that. Overall, this was probably the most involved unboxing I've had to do yet. A lot of gluing, a lot of screwing, and just trouble putting it all together with all the wiring down there. It is difficult, but in the end, it absolutely pays off because this is a gorgeous bird. It looks dang good, and I cannot wait to get this in the sky. So if you guys are liking what you see, make sure to subscribe, use the link down below to pick this up, and stay tuned for the maiden flight. It's coming at you quick.